September 11th, 2001. A day that changed the world forever. In this video, we'll share the untold, unforgettable moments that define what it meant to live through that day. These are the real accounts. These are the stories that still echo through time. My brother Matthew, a firefighter in New York City, called me late at night with a low, foreboding voice. "Something feels off," he said, a chill creeping through the line. That call, just before dawn, was the last time I heard his voice unaffected by the chaos that would soon unravel. I was working an overnight shift at the hospital, just a few blocks from the World Trade Center, when the news broke that a plane had hit the North Tower. My heart sank as I watched the dark plume of smoke rise from the hospital windows, signaling a nightmare turning into a reality. My hand trembled, not from fear but from the heartbreaking realization that Matthew was likely rushing toward the calamity. When the second plane struck, the gravity of the situation became starkly apparent. The hospital erupted into a whirlwind of activity, preparing for the influx of casualties that we all prayed would arrive. Survivors desperately seeking help amidst the chaos and noise. My role shifted from concerned brother to life-saving doctor, each patient's face mirroring my own anxiety, reflecting the terror engulfing the city. Throughout that harrowing day, a part of me remained with Matthew, hoping against hope that he would come through the ER doors, battered but safe. However, as the towers collapsed and the news footage in the break room displayed the devastation, a chilling realization enveloped me. The bond one shared with my brother, once as sturdy as the steel beams of those now fallen buildings, was buried under the rubble. The days that followed became a blur of echoes and loss. Matthew's helmet was discovered 3 days later, a battered relic that encapsulated countless stories of bravery and sacrifice. It was handed to me with deep respect, serving as a symbol of his heroism and a testament to the personal sacrifices made by first responders like him. In the years that followed, I found ways to honor Matthew's memory, not only through the stories I share, but also by saving lives. Each patient who walks out of my ER is a reminder of why he rushed in without hesitation, as every life is precious. The grief of losing Matthew hasn't subsided. It has woven itself into the fabric of my life, a constant reminder of the price of courage. My role as an emergency room doctor now carries profound meaning, with each shift filled with moments where Matthew's absence looms like a shadow, yet also drives me forward. As months turned to years, I began to speak at memorials and firefighting academies, sharing Matthew's story not as one of loss but as a powerful lesson in bravery and selflessness. His helmet, scorched and dented, served as a tangible reminder of his sacrifice. Through my speeches, I found a voice for my grief and a way to ensure that his heroism was not just a memory of the past, but also a legacy that would resonate with others answering the same calls for help. The 10th anniversary of September 11th was marked by a particularly emotional ceremony. As I stood in front of a crowd of eager young firefighters, the city's skyline, now restored, stood behind me. I felt a stirring inside me during my speech when a young man approached. His uniform was crisp, and his expression was determined. He introduced himself as someone saved by firefighters that tragic day, now sworn into service, inspired by stories like Matthew's. The circle of life and legacy unfolded before my eyes, a powerful reminder that from great loss can emerge new hope. This connection sparked an idea that led to the creation of a scholarship fund in Matthew's name, aimed at supporting the education of aspiring firefighters. It was a way to turn tragedy into a stepping stone for future heroes, a path Matthew had paved with his sacrifice. Years later, as I walk through the city, past the lively streets and rebuilt towers, I feel a blend of sadness and pride. The events of that day are ingrained in the city's soul, just as they are in mine. Yet, alongside the pain, there's a sense of purpose, a commitment to heal, to teach, and to honor. Every year, as September 11th approaches, I find comfort in the community we've created around Matthew's memory. We gather the families of the fallen and those who wear the badge to remember and look ahead. It's in these moments, as we share stories and honor lives, that I feel Matthew's presence the strongest. Not merely as a memory, but as an ongoing influence in the lives he touched, both directly and indirectly. I never imagined I would say this, but that unexpected phone call from my estranged son might have actually saved my life. It was early morning on September 11th, 2001, a day that began like any other. I was preparing for another long shift at the World Trade Center, where I had worked as a janitor for nearly 10 years. My job was to keep the place looking its best, something I took great pride in, even if most people barely noticed my presence. Then, while I was putting on my shoes, the phone rang. It was my son Philip, someone I hadn't spoken to in over 5 years due to a bitter disagreement. His voice was cautious, filled with the awkwardness that only years of silence can create. "Dad, can we talk? I'm in town," he said quickly, as if afraid I might hang up. Surprised but intrigued, I agreed to meet him at a small cafe near the towers instead of heading straight to work. As I sat across from Philip in the cafe, surrounded by the morning rush of coffee lovers, our conversation began stiffly. However, as the minutes passed, the years of separation slowly dissolved. He talked about his job and his kids, my grandchildren whom I hadn't yet met. What should have been a day spent tangled in responsibilities shifted instead to sharing stories about the city, the familiar sights and sounds of a place he had left behind. In the midst of our tentative reconciliation, the ground shook. First a low rumble, then a deafening roar. We rushed outside, forgetting our coffee, as chaos erupted around us. Smoke and fire engulfed the North Tower, a terrifying sight that felt unreal. The South Tower, where I would have been sweeping floors, was struck next. If it hadn't been for that call, for that unexpected gesture of reconciliation from my son, I would have been right there amidst the destruction. The aftermath was a blur of sirens, smoke, and ash. Holding my son, feeling his heartbeat against mine, reminded me of what truly mattered even in the face of terror. A deep sense of gratitude took root within me, mingling with the painful awareness of what might have been. The tragic events of that day brought a harsh perspective, emphasizing the fragile connections that bind our lives together. As the city mourned, Philip and I slowly rebuilt our relationship on the shared foundation of our near miss. The towers fell, but in their place, new connections emerged. It became a second chance born from tragedy, showing that sometimes it takes a disaster to reunite people. In the months that followed the devastation of September 11th, the city around us began a slow, painful journey of healing and rebuilding, and so did my relationship with Philip. Each subsequent meeting became less about recounting the horrors of that day and more about rediscovering each other, building bridges over the chasms that once seemed impossible to cross. We gathered regularly, sometimes at the same cafe that had sheltered us on that fateful morning, other times in parks or at my modest apartment. With each meeting, we peeled away layers of misunderstanding, uncovering the familial bonds that had been buried under years of resentment. Philip introduced me to my grandchildren, two lively kids who brought a fresh wave of joy and laughter into my life, a stark contrast to the shadows of the past. As we watched the new tower rise in the distance, symbols of resilience and defiance, we too found strength in our renewed connections. We discussed everything from baseball to politics, from the kids' school plays to plans for the upcoming holidays. It was during one of these conversations, while sharing a pizza on a cool October evening, that Philip dropped a bombshell as unexpected as that first phone call. He was moving back to New York, He explained that his decision was influenced not just by career opportunities, but by a deeper desire to be close to family and ensure that the bonds we were rebuilding wouldn't fray again. This news filled me with mixed feelings: joy from having my son and his family nearby, and apprehension about the possibility of slipping back into old habits. However, my fears proved unfounded. Philip's return to New York only solidified what we had begun to rebuild. We spent weekends together, attended school events, and even started a tradition of family dinners every Sunday. The city's skyline wasn't the only thing being reconstructed. Our family was too, piece by piece. Years have passed since that September morning that both shattered and saved lives. The city has moved on, and so have we. Yet, the memories of that day linger as a bittersweet reminder of both loss and luck, framing every conversation and every laugh shared at the dinner table. They remind us of what was almost lost and of what has been gained. As I recount this story now, it serves not only as a reflection on the tragedy, but also as a testament to the unexpected paths of reconciliation that can emerge from deep despair. It tells of survival not just from a catastrophic event, but from the personal rubble of a fractured family. It speaks of the towers that fell and the relationships that rose from their ashes. You wouldn't believe it if I didn't live to share this experience. September 11th, 2001, was meant to be just another ordinary workday filled with numbers, spreadsheets, and the typical routine for a financial analyst like myself. However, it seems that fate had a different scenario in store for me. The night before, all the lights in my apartment went out, creating an eerie calm before the storm. The blackout caused my alarm to fail, leaving me to rely on the sunlight to wake me up. In a rush, I hurried out, hoping the subway gods would be favorable, but luck was not on my side. Or perhaps it was, depending on your perspective. Just as I tapped my Metro card, a mechanical malfunction caused the train to stop before it even left the station. Trapped underground, frustration began to grow as I paced the platform. When we finally received the green light, I dashed out of the station like a speeding bullet, only to halt in disbelief. The scene before me was chilling. Smoke billowing and flames licking the sky where the North Tower had stood so proudly just moments ago. In the midst of the chaos surrounding me, a surreal realization struck me. I was meant to be up there. Had it not been for the blackout, had it not been for the broken train, I wouldn't be here recounting this. As I navigated through the debris-strewn streets, the city's heartbeat raced in sync with my own, and amidst the sirens and cries, guilt washed over me. A sense of guilt for still being alive and for feeling a sense of relief. It was a whirlwind of emotions all intertwined. Days turned into weeks, and the haunting memories of that day shadowed me, seeking peace. I found myself revisiting those same streets during lunch breaks, trying to understand the incomprehensible, searching for a stroke of serendipity within the chaos. Gradually, in the midst of shared grief and determination to rebuild, solace came to me in the form of shared smiles and collective resolve to move forward. I began to recognize not only the resilience of the city but my own as well. Now, years later, as I reflect on that day, the memories remain vivid, a poignant reminder of life's fragility and the slender thread that connects us to our fates. It's a story of what was, what might have been, and what has unfolded since that significant day when the world came to a standstill. As the weeks morphed into months, the initial shock of survival gave way to a deeper contemplation about life's unpredictability. It was during these long walks through Manhattan's healing scars that I began to ruminate on the sheer randomness of my survival. Each step along the revitalizing streets became a step inward, serving as a meditation on my existence and the myriad of what-ifs that lurked in my mind's corners. The city rebuilt itself around me, scaffolding rising like phoenix wings from the ashes. I observed from park benches adorned with autumn leaves as new silhouettes formed against the skyline, each representing resilience. With each beam reaching toward the sky, I too found a little more strength to reach within and confront the guilt and gratitude wrestling in my heart. On a clear autumn day, I found myself attending a small memorial service in a hidden part of the city, a serene spot where the names of the lost were softly spoken by weeping willows. Listening to the names being recited felt like a ritual of remembrance and grief. I experienced a connection with the strangers surrounding me. A shared sadness connected us, and in their expressions, I saw reflections of my own relief and remorse. It was here, amidst the collective sorrow, that I finally grasped the serendipity of my survival. It wasn't mere luck that saved me. It was a reminder of my obligation to live fully for those who could no longer do so. This realization did not erase the tragedy or trauma but brought with it a new sense of purpose. To live not only in the shadow of that day but also in the light of the lessons it imparted. From that point forward, I directed my efforts toward helping to reconstruct not only the physical city but also its spirit. Volunteering became my solace, and through it, I connected with others who bore their own scars. We exchanged stories and moments of silence, and within those shared experiences, healing emerged. Years have gone by, and the skyline has changed, but the echoes of that day remain, reminding me of the fragile boundary between ordinary life and extraordinary disaster, and the incredible strength that can emerge from our deepest fears. So as I sit here now recounting this narrative, I'm not just sharing a story of survival. I'm presenting a journey of discovering meaning in the aftermath, the power of community and resilience. This is a tale that belongs to all of us who endured it, as well as to those who didn't survive, whose memories encourage us to build a future worthy of their lost dreams. Indeed, there are certain calls you wish you had never made, ones that resonate in your mind long after silence has reclaimed its space. My story, like that of many others who experienced September 11th, is one of unexpected new beginnings amidst unforeseen endings. Instead of being caught up in essential meetings that could shape my career and finances, I found myself seated in a small auditorium at my daughter's school on that fateful day. I had planned to be at the World Trade Center, but life had other intentions for me. The night before was a whirlwind of preparations, not only for my significant meeting on the 90th floor of the North Tower, but also for my daughter's surprise role in her school play. She was thrilled to step in for a sick classmate, and I couldn't refuse her. So, I called my secretary, rescheduled my appointments, and committed to being there as she took the stage dressed as a sunflower. As I watched her perform, her nervous yet determined voice resonating in the room, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I chose to ignore it, cheering louder than anyone in the audience, filled with pride. It wasn't until the play ended and I stepped outside to check my messages that everything changed. News alerts and frantic calls from colleagues who knew where I was meant to be painted a grim picture. The North Tower, my North Tower, had been struck by a plane. In shock, I collapsed onto a bench, engulfed by the sounds of children playing while chaos unfolded just miles away. That day, opting for a school play over a corporate meeting saved my life, serving as a stark reminder of life's fragility and the seemingly random choices that shape our journeys. As New York grappled with its darkest moments, my missed meeting became a symbol of my second chance. The weight of lost friends and colleagues burdened me, a mix of guilt and gratitude that was both a blessing and a challenge. In the wake of the attacks, I wrestled with a complex array of emotions. Survivor's guilt loomed over me, a constant reminder of the twist of fate that had spared me while so many lost their lives. As weeks passed, the harsh reality of the losses began to sink in. The faces of my colleagues who perished remained etched in my memory, their unfinished work lingering in the now silent hallways of our office. I attended memorials, spoke with grieving families, and did my best to support them, but the feeling of having been spared often overshadowed these experiences. My professional life, which once served as a fundamental aspect of my identity, began to feel less significant. The corporate disputes, the never-ending meetings, and the unyielding chase for profit became trivial compared to my newfound appreciation for life's simple pleasures. An evening stroll with my family, a picnic on the weekend, the joyous laughter of my children. This change in my priorities prompted a major decision. I resigned from my senior consultant position, a choice that surprised my coworkers but was essential for my mental well-being. I shifted my focus toward community service, specifically concentrating on disaster preparedness and support systems for families impacted by tragedies such as 9/11. In collaboration with local organizations, I contributed to programs designed to provide not only immediate help but also long-term emotional support. Although this work was emotionally draining, it offered a sense of purpose that my former career lacked. On the 20th anniversary of September 11th, while standing at the newly constructed memorial, I pondered the journey since that tragic day. The names inscribed on the bronze panels conveyed stories of those who were less fortunate than I. My daughter, now a college student majoring in psychology, accompanied me, and I watched as she placed flowers by the names of my lost colleagues. A complex mix of sorrow and gratitude washed over me. Her presence served as a continual reminder of the reasons behind my life-changing decisions from years past. Through all these experiences, I have come to realize that life does not always present us with clear distinctions between right and wrong. Often, it's about making the best of the choices we have. My choice to be there for my daughter unexpectedly transformed my life, and in return, I strive to live in a way that honors those who never had a second chance. That September morning unfolded like any other in the hectic life of a tech startup founder in New York City. The sun filtered through the tall buildings, casting long shadows across my disorganized apartment as I readied myself for one of the most significant pitches of my profession. I was set to meet with investors at the North Tower of the World Trade Center, a presentation that had the potential to propel my startup to new heights. Yet, underneath my carefully orchestrated morning routine, an unsettling feeling lingered, a silent cry against the relentless pressure that had become my everyday reality. While finalizing my slides, an overwhelming sense of weariness washed over me. This was not merely physical exhaustion, but a deep-seated fatigue that led me to reevaluate everything I was pursuing. On a whim, I drafted an email to my team, an unsent resignation that expressed all my doubts and apprehensions, revealing that I might not be suited for the relentless arena of tech startups. Leaving the email in my drafts, I took my laptop and headed out, unaware that choosing to postpone sending that message would ultimately preserve my life. As I neared the towering glass structure of the North Tower, an unexpected urge to stop for coffee overwhelmed me. This small detour, sparked by an unusual desire for a moment of tranquility, meant that I was still waiting in line at the cafe when the first plane crashed. The impact was so powerful that it felt as if the earth had divided. Time seemed to slow as chaos erupted around me. People screamed and fled while I stood paralyzed, processing the reality of what was unfolding. The tower that I should have been entering was now engulfed in flames, and the weight of this near miss was crushing, both physically and emotionally. In the days that followed, confined within a city overwhelmed by fear and grief, the unsent email tormented me. It embodied all that I had nearly lost, not just my life, but the chance to change it. As rescue teams worked tirelessly amidst the debris, I grappled with my own chaos, sifting through the emotional wreckage of the events that had transpired. As New York slowly began to heal, I too reassessed the pieces of my life. The draft email, now a reflection of my overwhelmed state, no longer just resided in my inbox but became a prompt for deep introspection. I realized that surviving the attack served as a stark reminder of life's fragility and my discontent with the trajectory I was on. With the city still delicate and marked as my backdrop, I made a choice to redirect my focus. Though technology and entrepreneurship had always ignited my passion, the speed and scale of my work had become suffocating. I started to reformulate my startup's mission, guiding us toward initiatives that not only sparked innovation but also nurtured community and resilience. Instead of sending the unsent resignation email, I rewrote a message to my team that was hopeful and redirected. Months turned into years, and our projects started to reflect this new ethos. Inspired by the courageous individuals who had rushed into the towers on that fateful day, I shared my experiences, my near miss, and my vision for a company that could contribute positively in the wake of such destruction. To my surprise, the response was overwhelmingly supportive, and my team was not only ready to embrace the new direction, but excited by the prospect of making meaningful impact. We developed tech solutions for emergency responders that could save lives in future crises. Our work took on a new meaning, and I personally discovered the fulfillment that had eluded me during the relentless quest for startup profitability. A community initiative was started that day to teach young tech enthusiasts in the city how to use technology to solve real-world problems. It was a huge success, demonstrating how far we had come and how tragedy had changed our mission. As I now look back on the course my life took after that unsent email, I'm reminded of the power of second chances. The 10th anniversary of September 11th drew near, and with it came the desire to mark the occasion in a way that honored the journey I had embarked on. From as far back as I can remember, I've had an instinctual awareness about events, a subtle hint from the universe whenever something significant was about to occur. However, nothing could prepare me for the startling precision of the dream that plagued my nights during the summer of 2001. Night after night, I was tormented by a vision of New York cloaked in smoke and chaos, which left me questioning its significance as I started each day bleary-eyed and unsettled. On the morning of September 11th, as I got ready to attend a routine city council meeting for the local newspaper, that same sense of unease took hold of me. The air felt thick with an impending sense of doom that I couldn't shake. Arriving at City Hall with my notebook, I tried to concentrate on the mundane topics of urban policy, but the persistent feeling wouldn't dissipate. Halfway through the meeting, the urgency became too much to bear. I packed my belongings, mumbling an excuse about feeling ill, and stepped outside. The moment I emerged, the environment around me transformed. Sirens wailed in the distance, and when I looked toward downtown, a colossal cloud of smoke rose where the Twin Towers had been. The sight was surreal, reflecting my nightmares so exactly that it felt like I was walking through them. On the streets I knew well, the scenes I had envisioned unfolded in real time. The shock of witnessing my nightmares come to life was immobilizing. I stood there, camera dangling forgotten around my neck as a frantic crowd rushed past in search of safety. It was within this chaos, amid the fear and confusion, that I discovered my purpose. Shaking off my stupor, I began to document the unfolding events through my camera lens, capturing the unfiltered emotions of that day. Fear, despair, and a profound sense of loss. In the ensuing days, as the city embarked on the long journey of mourning and recovery, I grappled with survivor's guilt and the unsettling accuracy of my premonitions. How could I have foreseen this and not acted to prevent it? Yet, I eventually recognized that my duty as a journalist was not to avert the future, but to witness it, to share the stories of those entrenched in the heart of such tragedies. The weight of the September 11th events never fully lifted. Instead, it settled into a new normal, becoming a constant presence in my everyday life as I continued to report on the aftermath and the resilience of New York City. My dreams began to evolve, no longer tormented by visions of disaster. They shifted to reflections of rebuilding and renewal. It felt as though my subconscious was attempting to heal, searching for light amidst the darkness that had engulfed my city. Over time, as months turned into years, my role as a journalist grew, leading me to stories of survival and hope, narratives that echoed my own quest for meaning in the wake of the attacks. I chronicled the city's gradual but consistent recovery, focusing on the reconstruction of the skyline and, more importantly, the resilience of its citizens. My articles became a rich tapestry of human fortitude, a narrative that resonated with many seeking understanding and healing. As the 10th anniversary of the attacks neared, I chose to compile my experiences alongside those of others into a book titled Echoes of Resilience. This collection featured first-hand stories from survivors, first responders, and everyday individuals like myself who had experienced the day that altered our lives forever. Writing this book was a therapeutic process, allowing me to confront my lingering fears and guilt while providing a platform for others to express their journeys. The launch event took place in a quaint bookstore in Lower Manhattan, just a few blocks from where the Twin Towers once stood. As I shared excerpts with the audience, I could sense a collective healing underway. After the reading, a woman approached me, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. She introduced herself as the widow of a firefighter who perished that day while rescuing others. Clutching a copy of the book to her breast, she explained how my writings had aided her in finding some solace and recognizing that the pain and loss were shared by many. Such moments solidified my conviction in the significance of storytelling. Narratives can not only preserve history but also facilitate healing, uniting people through their common experiences. Now, years after that tragic day, I continue to wield my journalism as a means for change, advocating for mental health awareness and the vital role of community support during crises. I have learned that my premonitions, as frightening as they were, granted me a unique viewpoint that I have leveraged to assist others in navigating their grief and moving toward healing. As a historian focused on the architectural development of New York City, I have always valued the importance of timing and location. However, my life took an ironic turn that highlighted this belief more deeply than any lecture I could have given. On the morning of September 11, 2001, I was set to present on the iconic design and cultural significance of the World Trade Center at a conference held in the North Tower. That morning, everything seemed to conspire against my ability to be on time. My alarm failed to sound, a rarity I later discovered was due to a minor power outage in my neighborhood. I hurried out of bed, already running late, and my day further unraveled from that point. First, my cab got caught in an unusual traffic jam caused by a morning accident on my usual route to downtown. Impatient, I opted to switch to the subway, only to encounter delays there as well due to reported technical issues across the network. Growing increasingly frustrated and anxious about missing my presentation slot at the conference, I eventually arrived at a subway station just a few blocks from the World Trade Center, later than I had ever been. As I emerged, the ground shook beneath me, and a loud roar filled the air. I came out into chaos. The first plane had just hit the North Tower. Standing amidst streets filled with bewildered and terrified individuals, I realized how narrowly I had escaped potential death. My historical interests had always provided a sense of connection to the past, but in that moment, history was unfolding around me in a terrifying and tragic manner. The remainder of the day was a hazy blur of disbelief and horror as I stumbled through the city, trying to comprehend the scale of what had taken place. The conference and my presentation felt suddenly trivial and far removed as I watched the city grapple with the shock. In the months that followed that fateful day in September, my connection to history deepened, now shaded by a poignant awareness of how swiftly the present shifts into the past. The attack on the World Trade Center not only transformed the skyline of the city I had studied and inhabited, but also changed the trajectory of my own life. It compelled me to reassess what truly mattered, both in my career and personal life. I found myself returning repeatedly to the site of the tragedy, drawn not only by scholarly interest but also by a desire to comprehend the human narratives behind the architectural loss. My research evolved from focusing on the structural and stylistic features of buildings to examining the effects of such landmarks on the communities that constructed and surrounded them. This new direction led me to work alongside other historians and psychologists to document and analyze the collective and individual responses to urban disasters. This collaborative effort culminated in a new course at the university. I taught a course called Architecture and Tragedy. The human context, aimed at examining how physical environments reflect the best and worst of human actions and how they transform into sites of memory and significance following catastrophic events. As I delivered my lectures, I frequently pondered my own narrow escape and what it represented. It wasn't merely an appointment, but a life saved at a pivotal moment in history. This insight came with a sense of obligation to make the most of my second chance, both in my career and personal life. Consequently, I began volunteering at the newly opened community center near Ground Zero, where I assisted in organizing events that promoted healing and unity. These efforts connected me with a diverse array of individuals whose resilience and survival stories inspired my teachings and publications. During one of these community gatherings, I encountered James, a firefighter involved in the rescue operations on September 11th. His strength and commitment in the face of such significant adversity profoundly moved me. Over time, our mutual dedication to rebuilding the community transformed into a deep and supportive friendship. Reflecting on the 2 decades since that day, I recognize not only the personal and professional changes brought about by a tragic event, but also the enrichment that has come from it. The history I teach and write about has evolved beyond just buildings and dates. It now encompasses the unyielding human spirit, the potential for recovery, and the vital role of community in challenging times. As a historian, I had always aspired to make history engaging for my students. Now, I aim to help them realize that they are not merely spectators of history but active participants capable of influencing it in both minor and significant ways.